includes civil society, the media, as well as the South Africans that follow our deliberations. This is the meeting of the Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies in the National Assembly, which is convening to consider a report of the subcommittee that it has created in terms of the rules of the National Assembly. With the quorum therefore having been confirmed that we can be able to proceed for purposes of record, I would want to get the apologies that may have been received. And of course, the apology on my side has already been raised by the committee support, was in relation to my gadget as I'm on the road moving. So in some spaces, connectivity becomes a problem. So in that score, if I may just get, if there are apologies, I see Ajira indicating load shedding on my phone. I'm not sure if you are still on the platform, Ajira. Ajira?
I'm here, Chairperson. Apologies, I was just load shedding, Chair. I've just switched. Apologies from Mr. Malala, Chair, and Ms. Mtembo. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Malala and Honorable Mtembo, I suspect that they will be able to join the meeting, probably, because I do see now Honorable Malala back on the line. We'll proceed on the basis that then we are correcting. Just to deal with the formalities, first and foremost in relation to the rules, that would expect that all the people on the platform adhere to the rules of the National Assembly on this platform. First thing is just to observe the fact that we must keep our mics muted and the video camera off until you are recognized by the chairperson of the meeting. In that case, you'll then proceed to unmute your mic and be able to speak accordingly as recognized by the chair. Switch on your video camera. In a situation where you are experiencing connectivity challenges, it therefore means that you'll have to ask for the permission of the chair for you to switch off your video camera to maximize your bandwidth and then proceed to speak. In situations where members or participants lose connectivity and have to reconnect, please ensure at all times as you reconnect that your video camera is off and the mic is muted, as mics are sensitive and could pick up background sounds that could distract a speaker that may be on the platform at the time. As we all know, in terms of the rules, point of orders are also accepted, provided for. However, on this platform, you'll keep your mic muted, raise your hand on the gadget. In this case, I will also be assisted by the committee support to recognize the hand. Only at the time you are recognized by the chairperson, then you'll proceed to unmute your mic and raise the point of order, on which the chairperson could rule upon in terms of the rules of the National Assembly. We are also advised, honorable members, that we do not raise the necessary point of orders to a point where the meeting collapses on this platform. Having said that, honorable members, especially those that do not serve in the subcommittee, in our meeting earlier on, the subcommittee, as it has thought in its previous meeting, would have asked for a legal opinion on a referral that has come before the committee in terms of the ATC. And that legal opinion was then received, and the subcommittee dealt with that legal opinion. And after that legal opinion would have then made its recommendations, which will be presented to this meeting as the report of the subcommittee. As we know, it's presenting it here so that the committee makes the final recommendation in that regard. But one thought it's prudent that we allow a legal department so that you understand the report as it gets presented to once again take the committee into confidence in that score as to whether indeed they would ask a senior counsel to present, because earlier on it was done by the legal section of Parliament. But if we have representation on the platform, it will indeed help to do that, so that if members want clarities can also be clarified on that aspect, and therefore present then the recommendations of the subcommittee on the basis of how we looked at that legal opinion. I take it that the legal, if you can get confirmation, Ajira, if they're already on the platform.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, if they're already on the platform, like I said, it's only fair that the members also get taken through. Would have agreed on a maximum at a time of 40 minutes, given that members received this very late. And in that score, for members of the committee, I won't be sure if everybody would have said it at the same time. But we did have that matter in the subcommittee and thought that it's important to be taken through. Will be taken through in that scope at maximum 40 minutes. As I welcome the legal department, Mr. Dejana, you will guide us in this regard on how we are approaching the matter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and honorable members, and good afternoon to my colleagues. I'm not sure if you can hear me, Chair.
Can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Chairperson, Advocate Ceci Paloi, SC, is on the platform. She will be presenting, her opinion. But Chairperson, through your permission, if you can just allow me to introduce her to the committee. Advocate Ceci Paloi was called to the bar, Chair, in July 2005. She has got 17 years experience as an advocate, a member of Johannesburg Society of Advocates. In 2019, Chair, she received her letters patent. In other words, she was called to silk. That's why we refer to her as senior counsel. So she has 4 years experience as senior counsel. She was the chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry dealing with traditional leadership disputes in the Northwest from 2016 to 2019. She is now, Chair, a member of the Appeals Advisory Authority at the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries from 2020 to date. Advocate Paloi has acted as a judge of the High Court of South Africa, Labour Court, Land Claims Court, and her last stint as a High Court judge was in November 2021. Advocate Paloi was corporate counsel to the South African Airways from 2001 to 2005. Advocate Paloi is a member of the Advocates for Transformation. Advocate Paloi was a member of the Executive Committee of the General Council of the Bar from 2017 to 2019. She was the vice chairperson of the Johannesburg Society of Advocates from October 2019 to October 2020. She was the chairperson of the Johannesburg Society of Advocates from October 2020 to October 2021. Advocate Baloyi now serves as the Commissioner of the Judicial Service Commission. She was appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa last year in April. Her areas of specialization or areas of practice include administrative and constitutional law, competition law, commercial law, construction and engineering, general litigation, labor law, local government law, procurement law. She has a number of jewels on her crown, Chairperson. Chairperson, allow me to present to you Advocate Ceci Baloyi, Senior Counsel. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and the opportunity to present the opinion. Chairperson, I hope I have not started to offend the rule by speaking immediately after Mr. Tejana before you gave me the chance, before you recognize me to speak. I'm still trying to understand the rules. Do forgive me if I have in any way offended.
No, you can proceed. We would want you to speak to the committee.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, as Mr. Tejana says, well, perhaps even before I do that, I should acknowledge that I appear with on the platform with Ms. Nompumelelo Seme. She's the junior counsel that assisted me in this matter, even though she wasn't on formal brief. And I just thought it's appropriate that I should acknowledge that she assisted me in this. Members would have received and seen the opinion now, and I'm going to assume that it has been read. I won't trouble you by going through each paragraph with you. And I will very much but I'll speak to it, I think the overall scheme of it. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that members have. Perhaps a good place to start is you would have seen right at the beginning the 3 questions that I was asked to address, and these I set out right at the beginning in paragraph 4. And then in paragraph 5, I set out the documents that I was provided with, from which I have gathered the facts that inform the course of the opinion. And what I had not done is I had omitted to mention in that list, and let me mention for purposes of record, that amongst the documents that I was provided, there was also what is called the announcements, tablings, and committee reports of 25 November 2022. And that report, as you know, contains it contains a report of the committee about this recruitment process, and concludes in the recommendation to the National Assembly to recommend the 12 named candidates and another 3 as what is referred to as the reserve pool. So that in paragraph 5, including now the announcement, tablings, and committee reports, is the full set of the documents that I was provided with for purposes of the opinion that are relevant to this. And then from there on, after that, I then sort of set out the facts as they appear from these documents that have been provided. Now, in the next important thing, of course, to the questions is the discussion now of the law as it applies to these facts and the questions, in particular, the questions that you have asked of me. And perhaps the most efficient and effective way of summarizing what the position is, it is you have section 13(1), which says the National Assembly advises the president to appoint, who to appoint, and effectively recommends to the president who to appoint of the 12 executive, non-executive members. Now, the next question that comes on that is, what in fact does this advice entail? In the opinion, I, with Ms. Seme, have set out that we say that the section 13(1) does not prescribe what advice entails. What does it mean, advice? So it's up to the National Committee, the National Assembly rather. We know that from 12A, the advice has to be about who to recommend to the president, and then 13.1 says you advise. And in our discussion of what that means, we firstly say that it's an interpretation question, because the Act doesn't tell you what it means, advice in this case. It doesn't set parameters for you. It says you advise, all it says is you advise the president. What that advice looks like is a matter for the National Assembly to determine. And as long as you stay within the parameters of legality, it's up to you what it contains, that advice. And you could advise just the 12 members. In some cases, you may find from your recruitment process, you don't have sufficient members to make up the 12, and you can only advise the president to appoint 6 people. But in this case, what the National Assembly has proceeded to do is to recommend the 12 named for immediate appointment, and then to create the reserve pool. The question then is, does 13.1 allow you to have a reserve pool as part of your advice to the president? You would have seen in the opinion, the answer is yes, on a proper interpretation, because it doesn't prescribe what the advice is. And the advice ultimately, which includes a reserve pool, does not offend, one, the text of the Act itself, the context in which that provision appears, and the circumstances that you're addressing. None of that is offended by the proposal, or in fact the resolution ultimately, to include a reserve pool for the president to appoint. So the long and short of the conclusion is that the Act does not preclude you. It doesn't in so many words say you can create a reserve pool, but it doesn't preclude it. And we say that on a proper interpretation, that means you can recommend in the way that you have done, which includes a reserve pool. The big question then is, when you've done what you've done, and the president is clearly unhappy with the nature of the advice that is received, unhappy in the sense of him questioning whether this is permitted by the Act, in the absence of an express provision to the effect that you can create a reserve pool. If he's unhappy with that, what does he do? What does the National Assembly do about it? I prefer to lead the answer to that question with this, that the headline here is Section 13.1 says you must advise the president. The National Assembly has done that. It has advised the president. As I say in the opinion, the president is free to ask for clarification. If he's got any uncertainty, to write to the speaker and say, I'm not sure what this means. And the speaker processes that following your procedures and rules of how you conduct matters. Is free to process that. If the speaker thinks I need to go and get a legal opinion about what exactly does this mean, I need to go to the committee to find out more, what does this mean? It's up to the speaker to decide how to go about providing and seeking that clarification. It is certainly not open to the president to say, take it back to the committee. In fact, the reason the president can't do that is because the committee process is complete. In fact, when the president says he seeks clarification, it has to be that he's seeking clarification of a resolution of the National Assembly, not of what the committee has done, because once the National Assembly has adopted the recommendation of the committee, there is no longer a committee decision. In fact, as a matter of law, there's no longer a committee decision. All that is standing now is a resolution of the National Assembly. And it is the National Assembly, if any clarification is to be provided, it is the National Assembly that must provide that clarification. So to the extent that the letter of the president, which requests clarification, to the extent that it contemplates that the matter should be referred to the committee, or it reads as I think it's capable of being understood, to the extent that it is understood as meaning, return this to the committee to discuss. That is a nullity which is not supported by anything in law, because there is no committee decision. The committee did its task, completed, and once the National Assembly had adopted that resolution, there's no longer a decision of the committee that is still standing or with any weight in law. In fact, the only decision that is now standing is a decision of the National Assembly, and it is that body that provides clarification if there is any uncertainty about it. And of course, as I say, the Speaker can, or the National Assembly can provide clarification. But what the National Assembly cannot do, and here I have to skip to, I think in paragraph 54 of the opinion, if you go there, and maybe the preceding paragraphs as well, there is a discussion there. It says at 53, there's a discussion there about the National Assembly having completed its task, and its task is to advise the president. The National Assembly has done that, has advised the president. What is the consequence of it? The consequence of that is the matter is now out of the hands of the National Assembly. It has advised the president. It's now up to the president what he does with that advice. As he has done now, he's asked for clarification. The one thing that is important to note is the president has not refused to make that appointment, at least not yet. He's not done that yet. What he has done is to say, I need clarification. The National Assembly provides a clarification. If it means repeating what you have already said, and I would suggest that the resolution, as I understand it, it's clear in that resolution what the National Assembly has decided. It is to recommend these 12 with a pool, and that's what it is. So that is clear, and that is your answer to the president. It may well be that in the fuller response, the National Assembly may decide, as I've seen correspondence where the Speaker does some explaining, to say, well, we've received an opinion, and the opinion says we've completed our task by advising, and it's now up to you what you want to do with it. If you're not happy with it, and in the opinion we do touch on that, well, if the president is not happy, maybe because he thinks the advice is unlawful, it's up to him what he does with it. He can't instruct, he can't take it back to you, because you are, to use the common word, you are effectively functus officio. You have advised. And I must use this example that even sitting on the JSC, there's been instances where after a recommendation is made to the president, that there's some uncertainty, maybe because of a development. In fact, I think specifically it would have been a development post a recommendation to the president. And in fairness and justifiably, it creates some uncertainty about how to proceed on the part of the president. And he's come back and say, assist me, what do I do now? And the answer that the president has received is, well, we have made our recommendation. We have advised you. In fact, even the terminology is similar. We advised the president, and the answer has been, the JSC has advised the president. We have nothing more to add. And that response is in recognition of the principle of functus officio, that you have done that which the Act requires you to do, which, when I say you, I mean the National Assembly. Please forgive me for from time to time interchanging the two. The National Assembly has done what Section 31(1) says it should do. It has finished that task, and it cannot reopen this topic again. Any scenario where there's a possibility of reopening this conversation again in the National Assembly has to have its basis as a completely new recruitment process. That's the only way. It would be the president was advised, the president must reject what you have done if he's got the power to do that. I haven't canvassed that. If the president were to sit on it, or to come back and say, I'm going to court, I don't accept your recommendation. And of course, we know that the established position is that the and I do mention that in the opinion, that the power of the president in this case to appoint is really a formality, unless there are legally valid reasons why candidates that have been recommended are not appointable. It's a formality. So if he's unhappy and he has no, whatever reason, he's unhappy to appoint and he's not prepared to accept, his recourse would be to go to court and assume a scenario where court says, yes, he's entitled to have rejected that appointment. What effectively it means for the National Assembly would be to recommence the entire process, because this round of recruitment and advising has run and completed its course, and it completes its course for purposes of the National Assembly by giving the advice to the president. And once you've done that, you've done your job, you're finished. You cannot reopen this process unless you start a completely new process, which starts with an entirely fresh recruitment process. You are not there now. Right now, that is not open to the National Assembly to do, because the process of appointment is now sitting with the president. And until that leg that is now sitting with the president is closed, whichever way, the National Assembly can't open this any further. And I think it's easy to use an example that assume that the president were to sit and do nothing, and the National Assembly, or even for that matter, the National Assembly this afternoon decides, actually, we want to reopen this process. The president can, as a matter of law, say, how do you do that when you've given me advice already and I am considering your advice? I might be taking forever with it, maybe because I'm taking legal advice or I'm very busy, but you cannot reopen this process because you already done your part and you've handed it over to me as required by the Act, and I still have to decide on it. So as matters stand, it's not open to the National Assembly to reopen this process, purely on the basis of the principle of functus officio. You've done your job, you have advised. You can clarify when there are questions asked, but you cannot reopen this process as matters stand now. You have to allow it to run its course with the president, with the way it's sitting now with the president. Another reason, that, and maybe let me first say that the principle of functus officio is it's a very powerful reason at this point why you cannot open this process. But there are also other attendant explanations why you couldn't open this process. And this is over in addition to, if one needs to mention those, it's that your recruitment process, the subcommittee work, the committee work, culminated in the decision of the National Assembly and the advice to the president. That process has been publicly announced. Even if you say, but all we did was to write to the president, that is to publicize it. It's now gone outside of the confines of the National Assembly. It lives outside. You've actioned it, and actioning it beyond the confines and the walls of the National Assembly has got legal consequences. The legal consequences of it is someone can rely on that decision, someone who is affected by it. Be it a beneficiary, be somebody of the decision, be it someone who has an interest in the matter, be it the president. They say, well, the decision, you have completed your exercises and as a matter of law, this decision, which is now outside, which you have communicated outside, has got an external legal effect, external consequence. What that means is the president can stop you from reconsidering it. Assume you were not on the same page with the president wants to appoint, and the National Assembly thinks we want to redo this process. The president can lawfully and successfully prevent you from doing that because you are functus officio. You've made the decision, you have finished. The process is not such that you can still take it back. And of course, there are instances, and our law reports have instances of municipality council, passing a resolution and then rescinding the resolution. But in all of those cases where that happens, it's where, or it's permitted where the decision had not been externalized yet. It hadn't been communicated outside. Nobody had derived any rights from it, or no rights had vested to anybody that they can enforce. In instances where there had been externalization, courts have very clearly, in the municipality cases, said, well, a council can only rescind if the decision had not been communicated externally. The same applies here. It's exactly the same scenario, that you have communicated the decision outside, so you can't revisit the decision yourselves. You have to let the precedence process run its course to the end before this could even be open for discussion again or for a new resolution. But as I say, that any new resolution to recommend to the president would have to be premised on a completely new recruitment process that starts from day one in the way that the subcommittee started. And those facts are not, you don't have those facts here. So the first point is 13, nothing in the Act precludes the National Assembly to recommend more than 12 people, because the Act says the president appoints 12. So even if you recommended 20, the president would still be confined to the 12. He's the only one who's got limitations that arise from the Act. It is he can only appoint 12. The committee is free to appoint, rather to recommend or to list any number of people. That you called it a reserve pool is neither here nor there. I do understand a question from the president that says, well, what is their status? What am I supposed to do with them? You've called them a reserve pool. The National Assembly's position would have been much clearer if all you had done was to say, here are 15 people, you choose from them. And you say, well, in our opinion, we think the first 12 should be the ones appointed. And that's our position. The other 3, you can see what you want to do with them. You could have worded it differently, but that you've worded it as a reserve pool, in my view, it does not invalidate what the National Assembly has done, that it has been presented as a reserve pool, provided that it is very clear in the resolution and advice to the president that, in fact, the 3 are not immediately available for appointment, or are not being put up for immediate appointment. It is only when vacancies arise that the president can dip into that pool. If that is clear, then the resolution is clear. The resolution cannot be attacked on the basis of, if it is that clear, it cannot be attacked on the basis that it is vague, it is confusing, it needs to be, the National Assembly needs to resolve again a clearer and more explicit resolution. If it is as clear as I understand it to be, which is 12 are recommended, 3 are an extra that the president should dip into to avoid us having to rerun a recruitment process in the event that one of the 12 is not available. All of that are valid considerations. They are not precluded by law. They are perfectly permissible in the scheme of this Act, which doesn't prescribe what form your advice should take. So the first is 13, the Act doesn't preclude you doing that. 13.1 doesn't. And then, of course, there's that discussion there about the effect of the president's request that the matter should go to committee. I think it should suffice to say what I've said earlier, that, well, the committee first, maybe let me first say this, that in their opinion, I do say that the president cannot, if that's what he was doing with the letter, with the request rather, to refer to committee, if that's what he contemplated, that the speaker takes this automatically, if you like, or mechanically. The president has written to say this must go to the committee, and the speaker considers herself bound by it and then refers it to the committee. If that was the intention, that is not in any way empowered by any law. The National Assembly decides how it processes whatever comes to it. The president should only have done no more than, Madam Speaker, I am not sure what this means. Please provide clarity. then the speaker would have then seen how to process that, including referring it to the committee. But insofar as the president contemplates a further discussion in the committee, and then that comes back to the National Assembly, that is not permitted of him to do, for the reason that he cannot instruct how the National Assembly should process its business, for one. But two, as I've said earlier, the committee has completed its work. It has completed its work, even if the president was entitled to address communication directly to the committee via the speaker to say, I want you to clarify this, committee. Even if he were entitled to do that, that committee has completed its work. The matter went to the National Assembly. The National Assembly has completed its work. And it has communicated further. So the referral to the committee by the president, if that was the intention, as I've said in the opinion, it's not supported by any law. In fact, I think in the opinion, I put it as strongly as to say, well, it has appearances of overreaching, or it is arguably to overreach, because it's not open to the president to instruct the speaker what the committee should be doing. So as matters stand, the matter as it stands is rather culminated in the National Assembly process. And that National Assembly process was that resolution. There is nothing more for the National Assembly to do other than to clarify, to provide any clarification that the president might want. And then the third question was the replacement of a candidate who has withdrawn his candidature. I guess it follows from my discussion of the first question, whether the National Assembly is permitted by the Act to create a reserve pool as it has sought to do. The answer in that first question necessarily flows to this question. It is, of course, the president can replace whatever departing candidate or departed candidate from this reserve pool. And I think that is the sum of the opinion, Chairperson.
Thank you, SC. I'm not sure if legal would want to make a concluding point before I hand over to committee support to present what would have been a recommendation from the subcommittee, which is subject to approval of the committee now as its recommendation.
Chair, thank you for the opportunity. There's nothing from my side. Maybe my colleague Andile has anything to say. I just want to thank Council Baloy for the opinion and accommodating us at short notice. I know the Senior Council is very busy, so thank you for that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Stekana?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. No, Chair, look, I have nothing to add. I think the Senior Council has covered everything. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you. Can we then have the committee support to indicate if they're ready to present the report of the subcommittee emanating from the consideration of the legal opinion. And then I will then take any clarity questions and all that, especially from those that are not members of the subcommittee. Is it me who's out?
We can hear you.
Yes, I'm waiting for committee support of content advisors on the platform and the committee secretary.
We are here, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, Chair, honorable members, and the rest of the stakeholders on the platform. We are here, Chair. I'm trying to get the report flighted. Ajira.
Yes, Mr. Majope.
Do I have the rights? I'm trying to get the report
Yes.
flighted.
I've given you the right.
Try again. I shared the wrong one. Is the report showing, Chair? Can I proceed? May I proceed, Chair?
Yes, please.
This is the draft, the report that we put together, Chair, after this morning's meeting. We attempted the report of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies on the filling of the 12 board vacancies for the SABC. That will be dated for today. We sort of give the background story. South African Broadcasting Corporation is governed by Broadcasting Act 4 of 1999, Section 13(1), that states that 12 non-executive members of the board must be appointed by the President on the advice of the National Assembly, with the term of the previous board, which ended or expired on 15 October 2022. The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies was tasked with ensuring that a new board was nominated and appointed before the end of the term of the previous board. In this instance, I think we'll change the wording to that effect. A letter dated 13 June 2022 was received from the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, informing the National Assembly about the impending expiry term of office of the current South African Broadcasting Corporation Board of Directors, which was on October 15, 2022, and requesting that the National Assembly initiate the recruitment process in terms of Section 13 of the Broadcasting Act 1999, Act number 4 of 1999, to constitute the SABC Board. The referral to the committee was published in the ATC on 30 June 2022, during the constituency period. The chairperson, on behalf of the committee, in line with Rule 158 of the NA, considered the letter from the minister and resolved that the Secretariat proceed with the process of publishing and advertising in the media, calling for the nomination of persons to be appointed to constitute the SABC Board. The committee advertised for the board nomination, and the advert was closed on 6 August. The committee further established a 7-member subcommittee, which was made of 4 African National Congress members, 1 Democratic Alliance member, 1 Economic Freedom Fighters member, and 1 Inkatha Freedom Party member to oversee the process of constituting the SABC Board and report back to the committee. On 24 of November 2022, the subcommittee met to finalize the deliberation of candidates to be recommended after the security vetting was completed and agreed to recommend to the portfolio committee that the 12 vacancies be filled with the following candidates. That was Dr. Rene Horn, Advocate Sidiso Tipanyani, Mr. Kututselo Ramukumba, Prof. Franz Kruker, Ms. Nombizo Bachi, Ms. Patricia Makopeni, Ms. Aifeli Makwanya, Ms. Magdalene Monsami, Ms. Riabetsu Mutaung, Mr. David Maimela, Mr. Dinkwanyani Mohuba, and Mr. Mpotsedu. The subcommittee made a decision to select 3 additional names which will serve as a reserve pool to cater for any eventuality given the period it has undertaken to complete the process. The following names on the reserve pools are confirmed, and that was Mr. Zulani Matthews, Mr. Palisakadi, and Mr. Quentin Green. On 24 November 2022, the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies met to consider the recommendation of the subcommittee. The committee recommends that the National Assembly approve the names of Dr. Rene Horn, Advocate Sidiso Tipanyani, Mr. Katichelo Ramukumba, Prof. Franz Kruker, Mr. Nombizo Bachi, Mr. Patricia Makopeni, Ms. Afeli Makwanya, Ms. Magdalene Monsami, Ms. Riabetsu Mutau, Mr. David Maimela, Mr. Dinkwanyani Mohuba, and Mr. Mpotsedu. The Portfolio Committee made a decision to select 3 additional names which will serve as the reserve pool to cater for eventuality given the period it has taken to complete the process. The following names were confirmed: Mr. Zolani Matthews, Ms. Palesakadi, and Mr. Quentin Grun. The report was referred back to the Portfolio Committee by the Presidency, and the referral was published on the announcement tabling and committee reports on 9 March 2023. The referral required the committee to address and clarify on the following matters. I think I'm missing something in there. That on 28 February 2028, the Chairman of the Portfolio Committee on Communication and Digital Technology received the following correspondence from the Office of the Speaker to respond to the various clarities as raised on some of the letters that were addressed to the committee. I think I missed some of the information in the chair. Letters from the Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies dated 25 January 2023, seeking clarity on Ms. Makopeni recommendations to serve on the board on the basis that she's a former employee at the SABC, and whether the committee has considered the prescript of the King for reports on corporate governance to determine her suitability for appointment. And the committee indicated that it was guided by the Broadcasting Act Act 4 of 1999, Section 13(1). The Floor Committee responded that it did not consider other good governance prescripts, such as the King's report on corporate governance, in the process of the final recommendations. One of other primary reasons the matter of the disciplinary process for Ms. Makopeni was not entertained back then in detail was that the committee considered it to be an operational matter that was dealt with at the level of the executive management. However, members of the committee clarified the possible areas of conflict during the interview process, and that this were responded to. The minister further wanted to know if the committee dealt with all the objections on the various nominations during the interview process. The committee further responded that all the relevant concerns regarding candidates and their conflict of interest included Ms. Bachi, Mr. Mohuba, and Ms. Mamdubi Moshalamu Lautsi, and Ms. Tandega Kubule Mbeki. Parliamentary Legal Services was consulted and the committee consented to the legal advices provided. On 20 December 2022, the Speaker of the National Assembly wrote to the President confirming the recommendation of the committee of the 12 names with additional 3 names for any eventuality. Subsequent to that, in the letter dated 25 January 2023, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies wrote to the Speaker requesting clarity on the recommendations of Ms. Patricia Makopeni on the basis that she was a former employee of the public broadcaster who was dismissed after this disciplinary hearing. The minister wanted to know if King 4 report on the appointment of the governance structure was considered. When the committee made its recommendations, the minister further inquired whether the rest of the disputes raised on the various candidates were addressed. The speaker responded that King 4 report was not considered, and the committee was guided by the Prescript of Broadcasting Act of 1999 of the qualifying criteria of the appointment of the board members. The appointing authority then wrote back to the speaker on 8 March 2023, requesting that the matter be referred back to the committee for clarity on the ambiguity between the response of the speaker, which bears no date, and the letter from the committee, which was dated the 3rd of March 2023, which was given in response to the letter of the president dated 6 February 2023, together with the letter of 4 March 2023. The subcommittee then set on 14 March 2023 to deliver on the referral of the matter to the committee, which was tabled on the ATC of 9 March 2023 for referral to the committee to respond to clarify the indicated ambiguity as highlighted on the letter of 8 March of the presidency. The subcommittee then took a decision for an external legal opinion to advise on the 3 aspects, which were whether the resolution of the National Assembly of 6 December 2022 on candidates for the board of the SABC is legally executable, on whether the legal status of the president's request of 9 March 2023 to the speaker to refer the matter of the recommended candidate back to the committee for consideration, and that he be given a clear, legally accurate record of what precisely the National Assembly has determined with respect to the persons they resolve to advise the president to appoint. In light of the present referral, is the National Assembly empowered to reconsider its decision and advise to the president against the backdrop of the withdrawal of one of the candidates? The independent legal opinion was then received back by the portfolio committee on 5 April 2023, which highlighted the following. The process of the recommendations of the names to be appointed to the board has been concluded, and with the shortlisted names adopted by the National Assembly on 6 December 2022, a letter subsequently which was sent by the National Assembly to the president with the resolution of the 12 names to be appointed to the board. Nothing preclude in the Act to recommend more than the 12 names as prescribed by law. And the opinion further highlighted that the appointing authority does not have the constitutional and legislative authority to instruct that the committee must consider the matter to clarify resolution of the National Assembly, save in the unlikely event that the rules of the National Assembly give him such power. This is not constitutionally permissible. The opinion further highlighted that the National Assembly has already made a decision on the advice to be given to the president. The advice retains the legal status of advice within the meaning of Section 13, subsection 1 of the Act, until it is set aside by a court of law or rescinded by the National Assembly. This is in line with the principle of legality. The subcommittee of the portfolio committee therefore resolved that the independent legal opinion be considered and adopted, and the matter referred back to the portfolio committee for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Mtubi. Honorable members, I will now recognize those members who want to speak on the report that the subcommittee has presented for consideration of the committee. So if we may, especially those that may not be in the subcommittee itself, and therefore would also be assisted by committee support in case I do not see the other hands. At this point, I see the hand of Honorable Bodlani before I open to other members of the committee. Can proceed in the meantime.
Chairperson, can I please ask that the last few sentences of page 3 be flighted? I would just like to read something before I ask my question. Thank you.
Dr. Mitubi. Can you fly it again?
We'll do in a minute, Chair.
Yes, can you fly it again and go to that page?
I'm doing that. Is it showing, Chair? We'll try again.
No, not on my side.
Let me try again.
Chairperson, if you allow me, maybe I could start with my question while he flights.
I have issues sharing. I'll try again, Chair, if you can allow then Honorable Dani to go ahead. I'll try, keep trying.
Okay, Honorable Bodlani, maybe in the meantime, you can start asking a question. And
thank
then
you, Chairperson.
flight it can then go to the actual page.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think a word of gratitude to Senior Counsel Baloyi and Ms. Seme for the legal opinion. And of course, to the National Assembly legal team who are validated by the recommendation, the legal opinion that we are receiving from SC Baloyi. I think for me, the biggest question that I thought I could pick up from reading the last 3 sentences on page 3 is what is going to be the lifespan of this process going forward? I just need clarity on that, because are we then going to, through you, Chairperson, write to the Speaker of the National Assembly to say, based on the legal opinion that we have received, we are sticking to our initial resolution with the names and all the complexities that the President tried to intimate, to say, are we then going to open the National Assembly to a debate of some sort? Are we going to then allow the process to restart in the National Assembly? I don't think I'm fully clarified. And that then on the rescinding part of the process, I just would like to understand, perhaps from yourself and the SC, what the life of this process is going to be going forward. And if necessary, Chairperson, I will ask that you allow me to follow up. Thank you, Chair.
I check if there are other members who would want to ask questions at this point before we get to the discussion.
Yes, Chair.
The Honorable Kombo.
Yes, can I proceed, Chair, without
Please.
my camera?
Kombo.
Okay. Chair, I just want to find out from the advocate or the senior counsel. Chairperson, now that the advocate is indicating that we can recommend more than 12 or 15 names, are we then allowed to recommend more than 12 or up to 20 names, Chair? That I just want to understand that.
Thank you, Honorable Kombo. If there's no other member who would want to ask the question, let's get those clarities sorted first before we get to the discussion. May I then ask through legal section that maybe senior counsel to respond to those questions.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Perhaps if I could start. I think let me start with the very last question, because it's a much more easy to quick to answer kind of question. It's entirely up to in the scheme of the Act, it's entirely up to the National Assembly how many names it puts forward to the President. The Act doesn't limit you to recommend only 12 at a time if you're needing to replace the whole board. The Act doesn't contain those kind of limitations. So it may well be, or maybe let me say it this way, a scenario is conceivable, for example, that you could end up with 15 very good candidates. all of them highly appointable, and the National Assembly is unable to pick a 12 out of that 15, and it thinks all of them are appointable, but for the limitation of the Act. The National Assembly would be acting properly and lawfully if it put up all 15 names to the president and say, our advice is appoint any one of these people to make up the board. Then the president picks from that. So whether it is 12 at a time, 15, 20, 30, the Act doesn't prescribe that your advice must be limited to only 12 people, or your list of recommendations must be limited to only 12 people. As I said, and it says in the opinion as well, the limitation of how many to appoint is on the president, because the Act says it has to be 12. He's the only one that can do more than that. The National Assembly can give him a names exceeding the 12 to choose from. So that is the last question. The next two questions that Honorable Botlani asks, 1 and 2, what is the lifespan of the process, and do we open this to NA to debate? I speak outside of being a member of the National Assembly, and so not familiar with your processes and rules. But if you work from the opinion and its conclusions, it says the effect of it is there is nothing more for the National Assembly to debate about the list that was recommended to the president. There's nothing more. You have finalized the matter. If you have anything to debate, it might be how do we formulate our response to the president? If we accept the opinion, as the legal team that has looked at this and in supporting the subcommittee and is now placing a recommendation before you, if you accept that advice, then the position, the de facto position, and in fact by law de jure position, is that the committee takes the view that we've done our process. We have provided clarity to the president, or the National Assembly has provided, the Speaker has provided clarity to the president. There is nothing more to add. Or you choose to repeat what you've already said, to say, well, we've since received the opinion and our internal legal people have also looked at it. The committee has looked at those two opinions, and that would be the Speaker speaking, saying to the president, and the National Assembly has considered a report following these three processes of the internal people, external opinion, and this committee deliberation that happened this morning and that is happening now, in view and having taken all of that into account, presented to the National Assembly. The National Assembly is satisfied that we have given you our advice, and you must now, the matter is on your desk, you must now decide what to do with it. I would, subject to your internal processes, which, as I say, I'm not quite familiar with, subject to how you process things, that kind of response for me would be sufficient. It sets out, here's what we have done. Mr. President, after you said you sought clarification, here's what was done up to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly is satisfied that your request for clarification has received proper attention and consideration, and the National Assembly stands by the position that we have given you advice. The matter is now on your desk for you to decide. As a lawyer, I would keep it that tight, and no more. You can't, as the opinion says, unless the opinion is rejected, both the internal and external opinion, unless it's rejected at the National Assembly and then raises all sorts of other debates. If it is accepted, and I would go so far as to suggest that it is correct, the conclusions there, if you assume that the conclusions there are correct, then the National Assembly must accept that this topic of who constitutes the list that is recommended to the president cannot be open for debate. And so it's not available for a further debate of who is in that list. And for the simple reason that you've completed your process. You will be redoing, if you opened it up for debate, and maybe let me to put it simply, if the National Assembly were to put this up for debate, you would have the anomaly and the illegality that you have a decision that was made. It's sitting with the president for decide, and he could decide tomorrow to accept or not to accept. And yet, while that is pending, while his decision is pending, here's a National Assembly seeking to reopen that which is now sitting with the president for decision. So just at a practical and legal level, it just doesn't work. You just simply cannot open this up for debate at the National Assembly. It's really about how do we process our response now to the president? And that is subject to whatever processes and procedures you have. You have, as I understand it, at least in my understanding of your processes now, is you've done the committee work and it's culminating today. From here on, you give your decision to the speaker, and you, as this report sets out, here's what was done, here's the decision of the committee, and the decision of the committee is that the president should be advised that we have considered his questions for clarification, and our letter of so-and-so, or the resolution and the letter from the speaker contains the necessary clarification. If you think it's necessary to do another letter, then you do another letter, then approved by the National Assembly, that we have completed this process. Your rules are very important to I'm quite mindful as I speak now that it's important to have regard to the rules and procedures, because it may well be that however they are, you don't even need to go to the National Assembly. It's sufficient for the speaker to say, I did refer this to the committee, and the committee is satisfied with the responses that we have given you and the decision. There's nothing further for the National Assembly to do. If the rules do meet, that's a matter that has gone to the committee, as you have now taken it to the committee, because what has happened now is after the president wrote, the matter did go to the committee. What I don't know or I'm ignorant of is whether now that it went to the committee, does it follow that it must now go to the National Assembly for the National Assembly to adopt the committee's decision that we have clarified. We've given our decision. We have the National Assembly has finalized the matter, and that's the end of it. I don't know if your rules require that necessarily to go to the National Assembly. On the face of it, it seems to me that after the committee has looked at it, it may well be sufficient for the committee to advise the speaker to say, this is the decision that after considering the opinion and everything, here's what the position is. There's nothing wrong with what we have done, and the decision and the recommendations that were made stand. We have nothing more to add. And the speaker, that's all that the speaker has to do, is to write to the president and say that is the position of the National Assembly remains the same. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Those are the clarities that have been given. We'll now open this for discussion for the members to then engage, having been clarified.
Chairperson.
Is that Advocate Jenkins? He's not a member, so that's why I want to check with him first. Advocate Jenkins, you wanted to speak before members come in?
Chairperson, no, I've lowered my hand not to put pressure on anyone, but I do need to just speak on one or two things to the committee, please, Chairperson. When there's time.
Okay, you can come in because once members now get to the discussion, we're not going back to yourselves. Except where you need to be called in to clarify.
Of course.
Proceed
Thank you,
conclude.
Chairperson. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I think just on the last point, which Council Baloy has raised, and correctly she indicated that she's just speaking from her experience, but this matter has been referred to the committee for consideration and report in the ATC. And I'm sure the committee secretary and content advisor have advised you that when you do need to report back to the National Assembly when you get a referral in the ATC like that. So it is necessary to report back to the Assembly rather than to write a letter to the Speaker as was requested previously in this process. That's the first thing, Chairperson. The second thing is the concern. I think when we move forward here, Chairperson, the resolution of the National Assembly stands as it is. And that resolution has the 12 names and the 3 in the reserve pool. I've just looked at the report of the committee again. We did not in that report rank the 3 in order of preference. And that might put the president in a position where he says, now I need to exercise a discretion to pick one of the 3. Chair, I think for where the committee is at this point in time, and with this report that one has received, the issue of who or how the president must select there was not really dealt with at that stage. And as we speak, there is litigation ongoing in the Constitutional Court. Whether it will proceed there or whether the court will ask the litigants to go to a high court rather than straight to the Constitutional Court is a matter for the court to decide. But part of that litigation will concern that reserve pool and how that vacancy that's now been left by the one candidate that has terminated his candidature, Professor or Dr. Kruger, how the president must address that. So I would want to say, I said it this morning, that I would advise the committee to rank the reserve pool so that we do not give the president a discretion. Alternatively, we leave it as it is, Chair, and I don't think, I mean, as Council has indicated, and which I completely agree with, the committee is functus officio. If the National Assembly wants to change its previous recommendation, that's up to the National Assembly to do. But I think as things stand now, Chair, I think one must let the litigation happen. And the report basically saying that the committee is satisfied that everything was done according to the law, and see what the court says about that, Chairperson. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Can I now take members who want to now engage the presentation and the report of the committee, as this report can only be the committee report if agreed by the committee, and whether the committee would want to make amendments or anything. At the end, we must have a committee report. So here's the subcommittee report. From this side, I see that there's a hand from Honorable Bodlani. And there's a hand from Honorable Kolabana, who's also a subcommittee member. So I'm starting from those who are not the subcommittee.
Honorable Kubeka as well, Chair.
Okay, I would then have Honorable Kubeka after Honorable Kolabana. I'll take them in that order for now. Honorable Bodlani, are recognized, can proceed.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think the Senior Counsel has answered me fully that the resolution stands and it is fully correct in terms of the legal opinion that was provided, and that the conclusion thereof are correct. I think as somebody who, as part of the delegation of the Portfolio Committee, we went to the SABC last week and we saw the urgent need for the board to be constituted for the board to be appointed. We now leave everything in the hands of the president. And just to reiterate, the urgent need to really fast track the process just so that the SABC is not left in limbo. And just on the issue that the Legal Counsel for Parliament has just raised now, in my understanding, well, layman's understanding, it is that the litigation that is happening in the Constitutional Court right now will be offset by the appointment of the board. So the litigation becomes irrelevant once the president makes an appointment. And this is with the belief that the president was really confused and in good faith wrote back to the National Assembly to say, you are confusing me. So if everything was indeed done in good faith, there should not be any issues with regard to the president appointing as per the recommendations of this committee. So this is a humble plea to the president to really appoint the board of the SABC urgently for the sake of South Africa, and indeed for the sake of making sure that the entity is able to run its day-to-day businesses, and more urgently to be able to carry on with the appointment of the CEO and the COO, noting that their terms of office come to an end very soon. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Kolapanat, recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm very pleased that this matter has been settled, that our committee was found not to have strayed in any way or done anything illegal in terms of what we did. I mean, we were meticulous and we were guided by the advocate throughout. So I was quite confident that that would be the outcome. I think as has been made clear by the legal opinion, what we presented to the National Assembly was absolutely correct. And luckily, we did create a list. And while it may not have been put in writing, anyone going back into the transcripts of our subcommittee dealings will see that everything was ranked. The issue was ranked, they were ranked, and we took those first 12 as the 12, and we took the next 3 as a stopgap in case someone left or, heaven forfend, died. And now someone has left, and logically the next person to be put in is the first one on that list of 3. So I think it's worked out extremely well, but I think we must understand how critical this now is. It's over 5 months. They have sat with no board. I mean, the appearance before SCOPA was appalling. The executive can't speak for the board. Just cannot happen. So this issue has dragged on now for a very long time. We got it through in December, and here we still sit. So I think we've now gone to enormous expense to get a second legal opinion, frankly, and it confirms the first one, that everything was done by the book, and it's already gone through the National Assembly, and now it simply sits on the president's desk. And it's been absolutely clarified, and I agree completely that this committee must simply write again, saying we've dealt with every issue, we have the opinion, please just sign off on the board. It's got to be done, it's got to be done quickly. It's going to take a lot of time to interview and choose new members of the executive because their contracts come to an end, I think, in June. And we're leaving this board very little time to do that. They're going to be extremely rushed. So we cannot delay, we can't sit around waiting for other opinions. No, we need to just progress. And I absolutely agree with the decision of the subcommittee that we must do that, and the chair must be mandated to write through the speaker to the president. I thank you.
Honorable Kubeka, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to all members who are present, and also on the side of the legal side, and also on the side of the senior counsel advocate, and say thank you for giving us the advice and the clarity in order that at least we must be certain to do the correct thing. But what I want to say, Chair, it's because Advocate Jenkins whilst to manage to clarify a little bit, especially on the issue of this vacancy. Let me not say a vacancy, a person who it seems as if he is having a concern or it's a litigation. I wanted to understand there to say now, what are we saying or what are we gonna do on that side now, since, well, there is this concern of a litigation, but it's seemingly as if these three names that we managed to make a pool, it will be those names also, which will be much more easier on the side of the president, just to nominate also the other name, which we can fill the vacancy if the matter is gonna be set off on that side. But I hope maybe it can be concluded or otherwise. But if it is a challenge, which means those three names will be also in order that the president must also consider the name in order to fill the gap of the 12 that has already been tabled there. As we are saying, that was our recommendation. So I'm sure I'm a little bit covered to say in that order of priority, as you have written those names of the pools, or the president will just pick up any name. It will be a decision from his side. Or are we, as a committee, are we saying we will consider as they are following from one another to another, as they are only three names there? That's what I wanted also to get a clarity. Are we saying any name, or it will be followed as number one is Matthews, number two it will be is it the lady there, and number three will be Mr. Green? That's what I want to understand there, Chair. Thanks.
I saw Honorable Klaiko, but I see that the senior counsel and, or is it, no, it's Mr. Tejana. His hand is up from legal. I don't know if you wanted to clarify a point before the next member would speak. And I want to allow you to do that because there was a point made by Advocate Jenkins. And it seems we can get back to where we were before we ask for a legal opinion. Please speak, and then after that, Honorable Clark will come.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, there's a very important point that I want us to close. The issue which was asked by Honorable Bodlani, whether the House resolution as it currently stands can be rescinded. That's a very important question, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think even Senior Counsel has touched on this. We are in a situation, Chairperson, where the horse is already bolted. Chairperson, the decision of the National Assembly, that resolution, cannot be re-examined now, for the simple reason that it has got an external legal effect. And what that means, Chair, is that, remember, when you communicated, when the NA communicated its resolution to the president, it was communicated publicly. So what it means now, Chair, is that if in the resolution itself, even the reserve pool was not ranked, we can't write now to the president and say to the president, Mr. President, we want Zolani Matthews to be number 3, we want Quentin Green to be number 2, and so on. It means that the president will exercise his discretion, particularly in view of the fact that Dr. Kruger now has since written to the committee withdrawing. So regarding rescinding the resolution, Chair, even the NA cannot rescind that decision, precisely because it has an external legal effect. So I just want to make that point, Chair, very clear, as counsel is here. I see that Councillor's hand is up as well. I'm going to give Councillor a chance to speak to this very much important issue. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Tlaiko, just hold a bit. I would want us to have this thing cleared because at some point we need to make a call, and already we have different views again. Senior Counsel.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think maybe the way to put it is this: you can't selectively choose part of that resolution to reconsider and then say the 12th remains the decision of the National Assembly. We accept that we are functus officio. We can't revisit it. It's sitting with the president. That's not available to the committee and to the National Assembly. It's simply not available. You have one resolution. You don't have two resolutions that have been processed differently. You have you have a singular resolution which ranks, it lists the 12th, and then you have the 3. The principle that the National Assembly has become functus officio the moment it communicated it externally to the president. The moment you did that, the consequence of that is no part of that resolution is open to debate again by the National Assembly until the president's process is done and finished legally. Legally meaning he's adopted, he's rejected, he's gone to court. Up to that president's process being closed off, this resolution is not available, and no part of it, because it's one resolution, no part of it is available as a matter of law to be reconsidered by the National Assembly. To the extent that there may be now, on reflection, on second reflection, a concern that the 3 in the reserve pool were not ranked, and that could complicate things. No, it's not a well-founded concern, because the advice you give to the president could take any form, as the opinion says. You may have chosen to rank them, the 3, which you did not. It's equally legitimate to have just given the 3 names and leave it to the president to pick. There's nothing that says you must present them in a particular order. You must rank them, and when you advise, even the 12, there's nothing that says, assuming you were to recommend, you didn't have a reserve pool, you just threw everybody in the pool, including the 3, and you ended up with 15. There's nothing in the act itself that says you have to rank your order of preference. There's nothing. So you could have just dumped the 15 to the president, and the president would be entitled, legally correct, to say, well, the committee has given me, the National Assembly has given me 15 names. I'm going to pick and choose. In their advice, they didn't tell me or did not make any specific recommendation who I should start with. So I'm going to use my discretion to pick, and I will pick taking whatever factors into account. So the fact that the 3 were not ranked should never be a source of concern. You are perfectly entitled to, as part of your advice, to give the president names without ranking them, and that's what you have done. But even if I were wrong, which I don't believe I am, even if I were wrong to say you were entitled to give the president a list without ranking it, well, you have completed your process. It's no longer up to you it's no longer available to you to revisit that process. This process has gone legally. It has gone beyond where it's still within your remit or within your sphere of influence to do anything about it. It's done. If you had included a bad candidate there, let's say you made a mistake, you included a bad candidate, tough on you. You now where it's sitting, you can no longer say, we want to reconsider that particular candidate. It's now up to the president what he does with it. So the firm answer to the concern about we didn't rank and the suggestion that perhaps you could, is no, you can't. As a matter of law, you cannot do that. Thank you, Chairperson.
I now call the Honorable Kleko. Honorable Kleko.
Yes, Chair, I am trying to have my house in order. I have no network at all. I am on load shedding. Sorry, Chair. Sorry for that. That is why I have my video off. Chairperson, there is something that I get from the senior council, that there is only one list, one resolution with one list. And you have us now as the subcommittee members having some questions and clarity seeking ones. Though we were part of the subcommittee meeting and had a report that has been presented to the committee. But Chair, there are things that we are getting for the first time. I'm giving the meeting the reason why we are raising some concerns and questions. The matter of the list and the matter of the 3 additional names, the 12 names and the 3 additional names, was raised in our subcommittee meetings. And the question of ranking was never answered. Now it has been brought by Advocate Jenkins. Apologies if I'm pronouncing the surname wrongly. He is bringing that matter now that the 3 names were never ranked. And ranking is the responsibility of the subcommittee, not the portfolio committee itself. It means we are delaying the process more. Also, the issue of litigations that are there already, Chair, I'm hearing that for the first time. It means the process can be delayed further. It can also be interdicted if there's someone who has a concern somewhere. That particular person has got a right to interdict the process. Chair, what I think we should have done our homework of having the most and the least performing candidate ready so that we make our assignment easy. The other thing that I needed to respond to is the issue of our reporting. I think what the assignment that we're undertaking, we're going to report back to the National Assembly, because it's the National Assembly that took this resolution. What we are answering was a concern that was raised by the President to the Speaker, and the Speaker referred the matter to the committee. That's where we are now. Given these delays, Chair, if I was the one who has the prerogative to do all this, I would, because there is 5 months already without SABC having a full complement of board, I would think of an interim EPC, where we are all saying there are problems already. But the issue that is at stake now is the issue of ranking of the 3 additional names, which makes me to think of an interim board in the meantime, Chairperson. I just wanted to raise those things, that there are things that we're hearing, I am hearing for the first time, that the list was never ranked. More so the one, there were 12 names and 3 names that were never ranked. And it is recommended that we must rank them now. That's why I am having this second thought.
Point of order, Chairperson.
An interim board. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kleko. What was the point of order on? But in any way, Honorable Kleko is now concluded. Want us to move forward? You are muted.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Chairperson. Just so that it is on record, Chairperson, Honorable Xabo is raising a completely new exercise, talking about interim boards and whatnot. This is exactly where we are not as a committee. The senior counsel has really given advice on this, and I think she is taking the committee backwards, and you should please make a ruling on that. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Honorable Podlani. Like I said, Honorable Xabo has completed a point, and I was going to then clarify that the legal advice we got when we wanted to do this intervention proposed as early as 2022. The legal advice we got was that there was no provision in the law for such in a case where the board's term of office has expired, except where there is a dissolution of the board. And all sorts of prescriptions were looked at, including the Companies Act and so on. And the primary law here is the Broadcasting Act. And of course, I would have allowed you to continue and complete so that the matter is clarified with the understanding that you fully joined the committee recently, and as an alternate, you were more on the primary committee that you were attending. I think for us not to be confused when we make the final recommendation on the matter, I think what brought the problem is exactly where we are, where you have different interpretations of what needs to happen. So we shouldn't be there. I think the point that, as I will give to Honorable Mnala, the point that the senior counsel should clarify so that we understand what senior counsel refers to as ranking, whether we hear it the same. Firstly, that even in the 12, there is no requirement in law to rank them. Even if there were 20, there is no requirement in law to rank them. We should satisfy ourselves that the people that we recommend are appointable people. So I want that matter to get then clarified as well, because it seems we're going back again. Then the second issue that needs to be clarified again is that what senior is, unless I didn't hear you well, you are also saying, senior counsel, that given that there is no prescribed number that the portfolio committee and parliament, as people dealing with the recruitment process, there's no number that has been specified on the side of the assembly. Hence, you made examples about even a lesser number than 12 or 12, even 20, but the law instructs the president to appoint 12, right? So that at least we are clear on that. And if that is the case, will that mean therefore that Parliament in its decision have adhered to a pool of names that the president could look at, and hence we had the reserve pool with all the motivation we have given for the reserve pool. So that when we make the call, we have an understanding. I hear the part about that the litigation is about the reserve pool, and therefore we may have to wait for the litigation. I agree with Honorable Bodlani that if the litigation is about the appointment of the board, once the board is appointed, there should not be an issue. And it may therefore make us to entertain the point whether indeed we should not just have a list that's complete, and in any way, if it's legally challenged, and remove the reserve pool so that we don't get to be another referral and litigation again. Because at the end, Parliament wants the SABC to have a board. And that's what we have done on our side all the time. So I'm raising this point so that Honorable Mlala, if you are coming for clarity, ask the clarity, but if you were putting up a way forward, if you can just allow that these points get to be clarified more proper. Because if the interpretation is our response to the president, that there is no way that he can ignore those names, like the opinion says, and therefore it means this, we have presented to you a number of names. So you can't be in a position that says, I can't appoint. There is clarity on that, and therefore there are no two letters, one that says ignore and the other that says the process would have been correct, because we would have noted the legal opinion that has been presented to us. I think for me, it's important to do that. Otherwise, I can see us moving away from considering the report that is before the committee, so that the committee is able to say whether it agrees, amend, and whether that amendment is within the law, and we're able to proceed. Honorable Mlala, did you want to put clarity at this point in the form of question, or you wanted to then contribute to the way forward so that I can then decide how we move? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I'm sorry for the camera. My network is quite bad. I did communicate with the committee that my network is quite bad. We've been having load shedding for the whole day. Up to now, there's no electricity. But Chair, I think there's something that Advocate Jenkins raised, which worried me a little bit. But perhaps if the senior counsel can also come in. He said in terms of the rules, this report must go back to the National Assembly. Now, what that means for me and an ordinary man who's not a lawyer, what it means, it can't go to the National Assembly without a debate. Now, the initial proposal, because the senior counsel was saying, your chairperson could easily write a letter to the speaker and the speaker write to the president. It was much easier. But once Advocate Jenkins came in and said, no, in terms of the rules, it must go back to the National Assembly. Now I'm worried because in the National Assembly, it's going back for a debate. It can't go there and just pass. Now, if they can clarify that part for me, I think I would be fine, because if it means going back is a debate, then we might as well agree that the resolution can be amended, contrary to the legal advice. So I think if that can be clarified, Chair, so that, because I don't want to believe that it's impossible for us to establish an interim board, because there's a clause there. I'm not so very sure, but I'll look for that clause before you close. I'll give you that clause that gives provisions that it says you can remove a member of the board, which by implication it says if you can remove, it means you can replace. Now, in this instance, the assumption I have, maybe the legal people will also advise, is that we don't have a board. Now, if the Act provides that we can remove and replace, when there's no board, what does the law say? So I want just those two clarities, Chair. And then if I have those clarities, because I'm also worried, like Honorable Teko, that we are quiet because we are members of the subcommittee. We are the ones who are bringing recommendation. But if other members are allowed to input on their recommendations, it gets worried and refine their recommendation. And then we are all quiet because we have been in the subcommittee. That's the reason why we are quiet. We want people who are not in the subcommittee to input on our recommendation. Now, when other members are allowed to input and even refine the resolution, then I get worried that what then will happen to this, the status of the meeting, because we are supposed to make a recommendation. However, Chair, that's a side issue. The main issue is these two clarity-seeking questions that maybe that issue, maybe it's a confusion on my mind, or it's just need clarity that if it goes to National Assembly, what happens? Because if it's the debate, then by implication, the resolution can be amended. If it's not a debate, it's a letter, then it's fine. I accept that. Thanks.
Yeah, can we then give to senior counsel to clarify these points that have been raised?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the first question, Chairperson, you asked two questions, and I think they contained their answer already in the way that you formulated it. I could not have formulated it better. About the ranking, the Act does not say you must rank. The authority of the National Assembly to advise the President derives from the Act. So when you ask the question, whenever anyone asks the question, what is the power and what are the functions and what are the duties of the National Assembly when it comes to the appointment of members of the board, you look to the Act, can only be the Act. And the only provision in the Act is 13.1 that tells you what happens, the role of the National Assembly. It says the National Assembly, or it says the President appoints on the advice of the National Assembly. Advice in the Act is not prescribed. The Act doesn't, and that's it. That's the only source of authority, nothing outside the Act. If you went and looked somewhere else, then you would have to answer the question, is this permitted by the Act? Now, advice in the Act is not defined. And so you can choose what form that advice takes. And that's what the opinion says. You choose as a National Assembly what form. You may choose to rank them. That's perfectly okay. You've chosen to do it that way. You are in control as a National Assembly of of the form that the advice is going to take. So you choose to rank them, great. You choose to say, here's a list. The President can choose from that list in any order that he wants. It's okay. If you say that, that's fine. There's nothing in the law, in the Act in particular, that says you can't do that. So to the extent that the committee and therefore the National Assembly ultimately ranked the 12 people, that's just this form of advice. Next time you have to advise the President, you don't have to rank. If you did rank them this time around, next time you don't have to rank them. If you didn't rank them this time and next time you decide, let's rank them for whatever reason, let's rank them, that falls within the Act. You are not, your discretion as a National Assembly of the form of advice you're going to give to the President or the form in which it will be packaged is entirely up to the National Assembly. So ranking is not prescribed, ranking is not prohibited by the Act if that's what you did. So you can do it with or without. That's the first one. And that there should be no doubt about. You need only look at 13.1. And the normal dictionary meaning of advice is recommend. You're free to recommend in whatever form. You may even want to add notes against the candidate, whatever form you choose. It's entirely up to you. So in this case, you have a list ranked or not, that's fine. It's well within what the Act permits. Is there a prescribed number that must be given to the President as part of the advice for him to choose from? No, the Act doesn't prescribe. Again, it's a form. What form is your advice going to take? You could choose to give him straight 12 because you're sure and confident about the 12. You can, as I said earlier, you may end up in a situation where you actually have many candidates that you love and you wish any one of them could be appointed to the 12, you can give the president that long list and say to him, as part of your advice to the president, and say, Mr. President, in fact, the resolution of the National Assembly could say, Mr. President, we've given you 15 candidates. It's entirely up to you which 12 you pick. So there's nothing in the Act. And when you look at the Act, you have to look, the only provision that guides you is 13(1). And it gives you an unfettered discretion about the form of your advice to the president. So you can give him more names if you wanted. You would not have had this debate, I would think, in a perfect world, assuming, what is going on now was that world. In a perfect world, had you just listed the 15 and said to the president, the committee wants you to appoint the first 12. We've given you 15 names, but we love that first 12. But whether you add, you choose to play around with the last 3 to make up your 12, that's our advice to you. You're free to do that. You could have done it that way. And that doesn't offend the Act. In fact, the Act permits you to do that. You have a wide discretion how you recommend to the president. That you have done, and so if you had done it that way and just given the president a list of 15 of all these people, 15 without calling the last 3 a reserve pool, you would not have we wouldn't be having this debate. We shouldn't be having this debate because you're free to recommend as many as you want. You're free to tell him appoint the first 12 or appoint in any order that you want. You would have been entitled to do that. What you've done now is you have given him your preferred, which is the 12, the first preferred. And then you say, because it does happen that candidates become unavailable, we recommend that you keep a pot of 3 from which you will pick people. In the opinion we've said that's perfectly legal to do. It doesn't offend Section 13(1), which is the only provision that guides you. That's perfectly in line with what 13(1) allows you to do. You've given him an additional 3 names to pick from, if in the event of vacancies. So there is no problem with that. The ranking issue, I think, not the ranking of the 3. Let me say that you could have ranked them if you had wanted to, or if you had thought about it, and then put it in the resolution of the National Assembly. You did not do that, and I have to emphasize, it is no longer open to the National Assembly to tinker with that 3, for the simple reason that that resolution cannot be tampered with. It's done. You've done your job. If the National Assembly tried to debate the ranking of these 3 or whether someone should drop off or come in, you'll be acting unlawfully as a National Assembly, because you've done the exercise. You've discharged that which the Act says you do, and to try have a second bite at it would be to act unlawfully. You will be doing something about something that's not properly before you. It's simply not before you. It's sitting with the president. So that nothing in that resolution, no name that is in that resolution is open for debate by the National Assembly as matters stand, whether for ranking purposes or any other purpose. It's not open. That horse has bolted for you as a matter of law. And I understand that from a lay perspective, it may look like, but we could do this. We could do that from a lay perspective because the president hasn't yet made a final decision. But as a matter of law, you cannot do that. If you did that, you'd be acting unlawfully. You'd be doing something that the law doesn't permit you to do. And I can promise that if anyone went to court, they will succeed without much difficulty to stop you from doing that. So whatever debate you're going to have in the National Assembly following this process, it can never be a debate about let's rank the last 3 maybe we should remove so and so. It can never be, because you are done with it. It's nothing that's sitting on your desk anymore as a matter of law. The next question that is asked by, I think it's Honorable Member Mulala. I do apologize if I've mispronounced your name. It's about what does it mean, debate? Now, firstly, you would have to look, the first thing you do is look at what the mandate of the committee was when this matter was referred back to you, whether by the Speaker or National Assembly. I don't know that process. So you must stay true to the terms of that instruction when the matter was sent to you, rightly or wrongly. So if that letter or that mandate that sends the matter back to you via the Speaker says, look at this and report to the National Assembly, that's what you do. You report to the National Assembly. As I sit now, I'm unable to, because I don't know the rules and your internal processes, I'm unable to say, well, unfortunately for you, in terms of your rules, report necessarily means debate. Therefore, it's going to be debated by the National Assembly. So I'm not commenting on that. But if that is correct, that it means debating, then the question is, what are you allowed to debate? If necessarily reporting to the National Assembly means without more that it's going to be open to debate, then the question is, what in fact is permissible to debate? Now, it may well be you're debating, we don't agree with the legal opinion and of the internal people, we don't agree with it. Maybe let's go to court. Might be that's a debate that happens. But the one thing that I think we should all make very clear, we should be clear about, and even for purposes of when you go to the National Assembly, is the resolution is not available to be reopened for debate. It's not on any construction. It's not. So whatever you're going to be debating in the National Assembly, it can never be the reopening of this resolution, because that resolution for purposes of the National Assembly, it's done, it's finished, it's as good as sitting in your archives now. You've done that exercise. You recruited, you went to committee, you went to subcommittee, you went to committee, you presented it to the National Assembly approved it, didn't sit with it. If it were still sitting with the committee at the National Assembly at this point, not yet communicated to the president, yes, as a matter of law, and and there's ample cases for that, as I said, especially in municipality cases of municipal council. Then if it were still sitting at National Assembly level, then the National Assembly would be well within its right and permitted by law to then reopen it for discussion. You're past that point. You have externalized it. It has a consequence that it has been externalized. The first consequence, and most important consequence, I would say, is you have now told the president, here's our advice. You've done your job. Now it's sitting with the president, and the president must act on it. And until the president has acted on it, and it ends up wherever it ends, you can't do anything about this resolution. It's done and finished and dusted for your purposes. So the debate that follows, if a debate necessarily must happen when you report back to the National Assembly, it can't be, as a matter of law, it cannot be a debate about the content of the resolution of the National Assembly. It has to be about something else, not the content of it. So, Honorable Mulala, yes, maybe debate must happen because that's how the processes work. Reporting back necessarily means there's going to be a debate. Perhaps that's how it works. But that debate, as I say, can never be a reopening of the resolution. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. With those clarities given, now present the report of the subcommittee to the members. Yeah, I think we've got the clarities that we needed. So let's then get to discuss the actual report as presented before the committee. So the hands I will take would speak to the report, so that at some point we rule on the matter. It's something else that's on the screen, unless it's on my side.
I'm
Can we
sharing
now-
the report, so I'll do that just now in a minute. Is it showing, Chair?
Yes, it is showing.
As I
Can
scroll
we,
down.
members, no, just put it there. Let's get members taking into account also what has been now clarified. Let's get members whether they want to amend the report or they would want to take it as is. So if I can get those that speak to the report, and therefore thereafter make the ruling on how we proceed from here. I see Honorable Bolani. In case there's a hand I do not see, committee support, you'll indicate. We're now on the report. All members participate. Let's go. If there are amendments to be made, if we have to approve in that way. Honorable Bolan, proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Dr. Midupi, when he was reading the first time around, he did indicate that there was some information that he had omitted. Maybe if he takes us to that, we are then able to make better sense of the report. And if at all possible, just to enlarge it. Thanks, Chair.
Is it big enough, Chair?
On my side, it's fine. I think I get an indication from the honorable member who asked for that it's fine.
This is what was omitted.
Looks fine now.
Okay, that was what was omitted. Can we now get to the actual discussion? Honorable Bolani, did you want to have a discussion?
I am happy, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Okay, Honorable Kolabanat, be followed by Honorable Kubeka. Now that clarities have been.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, I think the input, the legal input, both in the subcommittee and now, is that the list has been passed. It is set in stone. It's done. I was very confused to hear the parliamentary advocate say it now has to go back to the National Assembly, because I don't see how that fits into the process. Certainly no debate is needed because it's done. It's been passed already in the National Assembly and unanimously approved. So it's sitting with the president. Surely what is needed is simply a letter to the president saying we've taken legal advice. Here it is. We're satisfied that the process was flawless. Please approve the board. I am questioning the suggestion that it has to go back to the National Assembly, which would then be delayed further, another few weeks. it would put another month behind us that the SABC has no board. I really don't understand why that is a suggestion, and I would question the need for it. Thank you.
Honorable Kubeka. You seem to be muted. Or was that Honorable Kumbu?
No, no, Chair, it was not me. But Chair, I don't know as to whether I've missed something, because I was trying to check on the side of the recommendations of the subcommittee. I can't see anything, Chair.
Scroll up so that we get to recommendations. Maybe Honorable Kumbu will then make a proposal. That's it, Honorable Kumbu. I'm not sure if this hand that's up, whether it assists us or cause more problems, as it has been the case, or you just want to clarify what's said to be the input questions, the process to the assembly, Mr. Teacher.
Is there old hand, Chair?
Chairperson, I'm very worried about this point, and I think I'm raising it for the second time. If you look at the last bullet, Chair, particularly the last sentence, it says the advice retains legal status of advice within the meaning of Section 13(1) of the Act until it is set aside by a court of law or rescinded by the National Assembly. Can you take out, Chair, or rescinded by the National Assembly? Because again, Chair, the National Assembly, Chair, is functus officio, it's out of office. So this thing of saying it's going to be rescinded by the National Assembly, it's legally incorrect, Chair.
Will then I heard Honorable Kubeka's voice. I think she is now unmuted. I couldn't hear because it was between you and her.
Chairperson?
No, I'm check if I don't want any member that says I've been left behind, because I really want to make a proposal that I think will be midway between what is said to be a matter that must go back to the Assembly and a matter that responds to the questions that the President would have asked clarity on in the letter that we're dealing with before the committee.
Can I come in, please, Chairperson?
Okay, Honorable Bodlani was the advocate.
Chairperson, I also would like to question the value of having the sentence that says advice retain the legal status of advice within the meaning until set aside by a court of law. I don't think that adds any value to the argument, to the conversations that we have been having, especially because we have had no consideration for necessarily for the process that is happening before the court, and we have not entertained it, in fact, as a committee. So I do not believe that that sentence adds any value to the conversations that we have had so far. Thanks, Chair.
Can we go back then to other members who would want to contribute?
Chair, may I speak?
Is that the end that also look at the amendment? We're still amending. Report.
Okay, shall I wait? Yeah, okay. Please tell me when I can speak after that.
Do you want to speak on the amendment?
No, I'm very satisfied with the amendment, but I would like very much to hear what your proposal is. Thank you.
Yeah. In the absence of members further contributing on amending this report, but taking into account these matters that have been raised, I do not want to ignore any matter that has been raised. This includes what the legal department has raised, as well as what Senior Counsel has raised. And I do not want us to reopen a discussion, but I just want to make a midway proposal. Because we're all concerned about the time it has taken for us to get to where we are. And that from the assembly side, would have really wanted that the appointment be done. However, given the letter before us, there would have been confusion about two opinions put on the table. Like I said, we're almost in that space where there's an indication that we can write a letter, but there's also another one that says you have to still go to the assembly, even if you have not tampered with anything in that regard. Now, taking all that into account, I think we should probably, and that's what I would want you to engage on as members, is that we really note the legal opinion, especially now that it's presented by Senior Counsel. There are a number of areas that would have been, I think, added from what we would have considered in the morning. But more importantly, you know, what has been raised is that the matter is before the appointing authority. And therefore, in considering the matter, that's why we have got the letter that's before us from the President, asking for clarity on those matters. Now, if we really note the legal opinion, my take, as I say, legal people are not off the platform. They should really help us, not complicate the matters. Is that, yes, there may be an issue that is said to be in the court, if I were to speak to what Advocate Jenkins says. And that issue would have looked at even this thing about the reserve pool and so on. But if we note what has been raised with us. Firstly, there's no issue about ranking. Secondly, there is nothing prohibiting the committee from recommending a pool of names, but restricting only the president to appoint the 12. I'm saying these names that we have gone through the assembly, all of them. That's why I support one resolution issue. They've been through the assembly, all of them. What we may need to do as a response to the Speaker of the National Assembly, who has then referred this through the ATC to us, is that we give the interpretation as backed by the legal opinion, that there would have been nothing wrong in the process followed by the National Assembly as a first point. But secondly, all those names were processed, vetted, and all that, as we would have responded to the president before. And therefore, in essence, none of those names are not appointable when the president has to make an appointment, just like it has now been proven that you can have people that withdraw. So you can't take somebody who's also unappointable and appoint that person. We also do not know what could happen as we discuss, because even that withdrawal came after a subcommittee meeting that met. Then we had the withdrawal before we went to the meeting of the 18th. So you can easily have that as something that happens, or anything that happens to the candidate. But at least we have satisfied ourselves that the names have been dealt with by the committee, and the National Assembly did not remove any of those names, and were able to put that forward. And therefore leave the interpretation to that of the Speaker, whether we need to send a particular report different from the clarity in this score, which reinstate the decision that we have taken before and the names that we have dealt with. Of course, now with this advice from the legal side, that we should not seek to temper even about trying to alter some of the resolutions, but that the president should be knowing that the matter that said ignore the name has now been, the three names has now been clarified. So the president should be able to make that consideration. So in that score, it would mean that we have not gone back to the National Assembly to take a different resolution. If we're not doing that, at least we should, as a committee, agree that we are now making a new recommendation to the National Assembly, in which case then that resolution will have to be the subject of the National Assembly, with all the warning lines that have been given to us as the committee, that the matter could be challenged, the matter could be taken up, and so on. But we can't just not make a call and then wait for the Assembly to come back, probably May, when there are matters that need to be dealt with by the board. Otherwise, we ourselves can be complicit to the collapse of an institution when we had an opportunity to be clear on what we need to do. So you have two options in as far as I'm concerned. The first one that I've given, but the second one is that if you are really amending and putting up a new resolution, having noted the legal advice, that's the way you want to go. Remember, as a chair, I'm facilitating the meeting, but the participation of members helps the chairperson to make a proper summary in that way. So for me, even though you've made some amendments, it will still say that we didn't ask for an opinion and just ignored it. And that we go back to the Speaker, like I said. But whether there's a reserve pool or not, with the clarity we have, that we can look at even more names, and Parliament is said to have complied to that, at least the President knows that there are no names to be ignored in case that matter arise where he makes such an appointment. Otherwise, it can be a to and fro, unless the president says, I'm not happy with anything that Parliament would have done. May you look at the process, follow legal processes to do so. I think that should help. But at this point, I think we are still really going to and fro. And I hope that other members are also listening so that we are able to talk to the real issue of the report that's before us. Before Honorable Kola Barnett, I see legal is probably going to caution us that we are not on the right track. Let me give to Mr. Dejan before I give to Honorable Kola Barnett.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to align myself with the input that has been made by Honorable Kola Barnett earlier. Chairperson, the opinion, Senior Counsel's opinion that is serving before us. If, for instance, you go to paragraph 50 of that opinion, in fact, if you read the entire section regarding the legal status of the President's letter of the 9th of March 2023, Chair, this opinion is saying that referral has no basis in law. That's what the opinion says. Now, Chair, if we say that that referral has no basis in law, why are we then now saying we must go and report to the House? Report on what? On something that is illegal. So I don't understand, Chair, that point. If you accept the proposition that the President's referral of the 9th of March 2019, Chair, bears all the hallmarks of executive overreach, as the opinion says, then, Chair, why are you tying yourselves to reporting on an illegality? I'm just provoking the members, Chair. I'll stop there. Thank you.
The Honorable, okay, maybe before that, because I don't want once members decide, we come back. It seems legal is having a time here to engage. I thought we are done. Advocate Jenkins.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to assist the committee here. What I mentioned earlier is that the announcement to refer this matter to the committee, the ATC. The ATC clearly indicates that the letter of the President is being referred to the committee. The committee needs to consider it and report. So that's a instruction, so to speak, from the House that's been contained in that document, the ATC, which is a Journal of Parliament. I spoke to a colleague while this committee is meeting. I spoke to a colleague at the NA table about this, Chairperson. The fact is that if there is a report from this committee on this matter, it will not be debated. It will be a question of declarations that each party can make a 2-minute or 3-minute declaration at the most. What gets debated is usually decisions taken on legislation and legislation that needs to be passed, bills and so forth. That's the advice that I received. So I think we do not, from where I'm standing now, I'm saying that this report, if there is a report, will not be debated. I want to agree with Mr. Techana, my colleague, that it seems strange that this letter that's been referred to the committee requires a report, especially, and there I completely agree with counsel, senior counsel, as well as with my colleague, that this matter is functus officio. There's nothing we can do about that resolution from the National Assembly that went out at the beginning of December last year. Nothing we can do about it at this point in time. So there's no resolution, there's no report from this committee that can change that action, because that was an action taken by Parliament in terms of legislation that affects people's rights. And there's probably an argument to be made out that it has administrative action qualities, but it's a parliamentary decision, so it cannot be just overdone. as some resolutions can be undone. So, Chair, I think what I'm trying to say is I don't think the committee have to worry about or concern itself with whether there's going to be a debate or not. I don't think there will be a debate. Whether there must be a report or not, Chairperson, if it assists the committee, and I think when one reads that last letter of the President, where he's also actually saying to the Speaker, convene an urgent meeting of the National Assembly to deal with this matter, perhaps in his mind he thought as well that there must be a report, surely. But Chair, I think perhaps we need to speak to our colleagues at the National Assembly table and see whether a report is necessary. If it's not, we will change that ATC entry just to say that it's referred to the committee for consideration. I cannot see how this can be a debate almost between the committee and the House to say, well, we read the letter, we received legal opinion. The legal opinion say there's no legal basis for the letter. Therefore, we report back to the House that we need to proceed with our previous resolution. I've never encountered such an interaction between a committee and the House. So I agree with my colleague Andile there, Chairperson. So I think let me contact the Secretary of the National Assembly and we see if a report is in fact necessary, or whether it's a letter to the Speaker or an advice to the Speaker that's necessary, so that the committee doesn't get bogged down with this matter, Chairperson. That's my input. Thank you.
Now take Honorable Kolabana, followed by Honorable Kumbu, as to see the recommendations and see if he's got a proposal. Will then be followed by Honorable Kubeka.
Thank you, Chair. The matter is resolved. We have already debated it. It was unanimously passed in the National Assembly. The list is cast in stone. There's no changing it. So all that remains is for you, as the representative of this committee, to write to the Speaker and say, we've had legal opinion. It cannot be changed. This is the situation. And it's quite acceptable that we appointed, I beg your pardon, that we chose the next three on the list to be in a pool should the eventuality happen where a member pulls out or otherwise disappears. I mean, it really, there is absolutely, I'm quite sure, no need for it to go back to the National Assembly. For what? To say we can't change the list. I mean, it's absurd. So I agree, if that can be changed from the Speaker side, that should be done, and the letter should go to the President immediately. I mean, we've really now wasted 5 months and that place is falling apart. It needs our input seriously, quickly right now, today. So that would be from my side, Chair. Nothing we have done is incorrect in law. And what we follow the book straight down the line. And now the water's been muddied a bit, but it's now completely crystal clear according to the legal opinion. We must just get on with it and get this thing board appointed as soon as is humanly possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kolapanat. Honorable Kumbu, do you want to come in now for Honorable Pambo?
No, Chair, my hand was not up.
Honorable Pambo, before Kubeka. It may be me, Honorable Pambo, but I can't hear.
I can't hear either, Chair.
Honorable Pambo, can hear you. And try to unmute again and then speak. We couldn't hear you. like I said, it's unless it's me, I can't hear a thing from Honorable Pam.
There's nothing at all, Chair. He unmuted, now it's muted again. I don't know what's happening, Chair.
Honorable Pam, I think you should agree that I'm sure you can hear us, but we can't hear you. If you can just...
He's gone, Chair.
Connect again. In the meantime, let me look at whether there are other members, because then I can see on my side the document that's put on the screen.
Can I speak, Chair? It's Trego.
Yes, Honorable Trego.
Yes, Chair. I got your input, which I thought it was a summary, Chair. I am on the road as I am affected by load shedding. Chairperson, I'm worried that now we are saying, let's have a report to the president, because in our early morning meeting as a subcommittee, the meeting raised a concern that the president instructed a committee to do something. It was said that was illegal. But Chair, I think let's correct the confusion that we did to have one single list that is submitted to the president, a list of 15 names without taking any name, without including any name, but let's submit 12 names as the committee. That's if it's a new resolution, let it be. But if it is the same resolution, but a bit upgraded or whatever term that you can put, but let's have a list of 15 names without saying this is a reserve list. These are the 12 names that we are submitting. And I think to support my statement is the question from the president, but because what we are discussing mostly now is not what was raised by the president to say, what are you saying about the 3 names? And my plea to the meeting, Chairperson, is that the legal people are not an extension of the committee. It must be the committee members that take a resolution, not being influenced by that. They can give the legal side of them because they are the legal gurus. They are the one to advise, but they must not act as if they are an extension of the committee. I wanted to raise that. The manner in which they address the committee means that, to me, they are part of the committee. They must act as not as an extension, but as an advisory to the committee. I just wanted to have that. Let's submit a list of 15 names. If it's a new submission, let it be, but let's have 15 names without saying this is a reserve, this is what, so that the president does what he is supposed to do with the list and appoint the board. Thank you very much, Chair.
Chairperson.
Are you
Chair?
back now?
I'm audible, okay. No, thank you, Chairperson. If you may allow me, I don't know, I was not audible, and I think it was my gadget because everyone else is able to speak. Chairperson, the previous speaker mentioned that you were just summarizing. Your summary was the reason why the legal desk came in, or the legal team that we have here, that is what made them to speak. It is your summary, because it was grossly confusing. And we must make it clear that there is no confusion about what must happen now. That is why we brought the legal team here. And there's now, self-infused or induced confusion by this committee. The previous speaker is absolutely wrong. The reason why we called the legal experts here is for them to guide us. And the reason why you allowed them to speak one after the other is for them to give us perspective. It is this committee, or rather the subcommittee, that went, even this committee, that went and said, we seek legal opinion. We started with internal legal opinion, we got that. Then we went as far as getting external legal opinion, to which some of us objected to it and said, there is no sound legal opinion that would disagree with the internal legal opinion, because the process is very clear. We were very clear about what we meant by those 12 names and the reserve pool. It is then that this committee took a decision summarized by this very chairperson, who went then to go look for a legal opinion. That's fine. That process took place. The legal opinion has come back, reaffirmed and amplified and even raised consent of unlawfulness by the president of instructing parliament when it should be the other way around. It is now as if we are accounting to the president, which is not true. We don't account to Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril Ramaphosa, however, accounts to this parliament. We have gone through the process, as the advocate, senior counsel, SABC Board has said it, that we went through the process, and she used a Latin term, factus and officium, in essence saying that we've done our part. We have done everything legally, lawfully. We've done it in order, in line with the processes of what we should do. We then went to Parliament. Parliament adopted this. It was then taken to the president. As to how the president comes back, instructs Parliament to instruct us as a committee, to an extent that it even goes to the subcommittee. There is no confusion of what must happen here. The question was asked to SABC Board by one of the members here, what do we do now? The president has got a clear instruction, and the legal expert even gave an example of the JSE. Just, he said, we had a situation like that, and the response by the legal body was that we have already advised you. It is out of our hands now. Even if we are now disagreeing with the decision that we took as this body, it is out of our hands legally, because it has gone through the process. We have taken a decision as this committee. We have said that these are the 12 names. We were very clear as to when do the 3 names arise or come to effect. It is when there is a vacancy. It is now that there is a vacancy with Kruger that these 3 names come to play. But in the absence of that, the 3 names are moot. We were very clear, and the legal opinion affirms that very point. But this self-induced confusion or memory loss that has come arisen into this committee and has been clarified by the legal experts is obviously now political play finding its way again. We have agreed. The subcommittee has agreed. We have agreed now. Now again, the summary of the chair is now plunging us into confusion. So, Chairperson, as you had ruled in the subcommittee, and I'm not saying you are now bound till kingdom come, I'm saying to you, as we had agreed that the opinion is sound, and we all agree that we are all in the right as the subcommittee and now as the committee. All we need to do is to go on and appoint the 12 names as agreed. There's nothing we can do now. It is something that we have agreed on. And we know that one of our concerns was that this was taken to Parliament. The president doesn't like the names that are there. It is out of our hands. We have now taken a decision. And the decision of the president is bound to 12 names. Only now has he got the chance to now put in another name to replace or rather to fill the vacancy of which has arisen because of the resignation of Kruger. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Bambo. Honorable Kolabanat, I see your hand is up, but I think we also can't engage forever without clarity on going forward.
Okay, Chair, I just,
but
may I just say one sentence, please? I'm astounded that someone is suggesting that we can just fling change the list. It has been stated over and over and over and over again. The list is set in concrete, so there's no wiggle room. Your decision to write to the Speaker is absolutely correct, and I back it 100%, and we cannot delay this matter further. So I would suggest that you do exactly as you have suggested. Write to the Speaker, say we've had opinion, we're sticking to our guns, kindly have the board appointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kolabanat. I just thought I should clarify this point, Honorable Ambo. Probably in the course of losing network, you have also lost what really was said by the chair. And that was in response to a point that we are back to where we were, where you have a legal opinion that gave us a clear direction, and that it's a matter that we need to communicate to the Speaker. And then again, the internal legal indicates that we have to go through a report, which must then go back to the National Assembly. And for that reason, Honorable Kolabanat still posed it as a question, that the understanding would then be different from what has been advised, in that there's no change. And because there's no change, then we have to take the matter forward. Necessarily, we don't need to get a report. You would know in the course of that discussion, then the same legal advisor, Advocate Jenkins, came back to say, in between, I have interacted with the NA table. And therefore, the understanding is that this is not the matter for debate, but probably it may be an issue of declarations. And still said, we'll still further engage with them so that the report is put properly. If it's as a matter of communication, it could then be communicated, right? Now, the point that was made by Honorable Mlala was that when we had agreed on this opinion in the subcommittee, the understanding was that we are writing to the Speaker because we are not allowed to effect changes. But then if you are saying the matter is to be sent to the House, it therefore opens up indeed that we can look at then an amendment of a resolution that we are sending to the House for the House to debate the matter and resolve upon it, because only the House can rescind its own decision. And that would have to be done, of course, within the legal bounds, right? So I'm saying there's nothing confusing, at least from the side where the chair is not confused, and therefore would not sow confusion. It's because if there are two matters on the table, I have to summarize what I understand it to be and ask, and I've never said I'm ruling on the matter, and ask the members whether they are going with this option or the initial option that we had. Even Mr. Tejana, when he came in, he didn't talk about the summary being confusion, but he was clarifying that once you have made the point that there's this legal opinion, and this letter should have not been a matter of the committee in the first place, but it terms as illegal, then there's no reason to be talking about going to the House to do what when that referral itself is under question. But it didn't question the summary of what you are discussing, only raises a legal point in that score. Now, the point that may need to be entertained, and I have put it in the summary, was that the understanding therefore would be, we still clarify that there's a decision of the National Assembly. But now that we have the legal opinion, it's quite clear that those names are appointable. So you have not recommended people that are not appointable, okay? So whether you use the word reserve pool, or you just put you would have put a list. This is why I asked that question to the Senior Counsel. All what is important is that the assembly was not necessarily restricted to 12 names. It could have given more, but the president is the one that's restricted to appointing 12 names. And I understood, Honorable Clerk, not to be starting a new resolution, but speaking to that matter, that now that we have these names, why not just write about it? So you have got the names. So you are considering the names that are before you, President, because they were processed by the Assembly, each one of them. This includes even the 3, so that we understand it, that the reason we are discussing, and I said it last time, is because there is a question about the 3. And now that question has been clarified about the 3. That there's nothing wrong in what Parliament has done. I'm not sure what then gets to be confusing on this matter. And for that reason, if this committee agrees that all what we do is to give clarification to the resolution of the National Assembly, and that we're not changing the decision of the National Assembly as advised, right? But we are now clarifying that there is no basis to regard the decision of Parliament to have been unlawful in including those names. And I'm saying I do not see where the contradiction is in this regard. It's unless, as I said, and that's why I'm opening for other members too, it's unless then you are saying, given this clarity that has been made, that we could have put more names, are we now saying we are amending the names and putting in new names? That has not been the case thus far, that has been raised. Even what Honorable Clerko says, she says, not including a new name, not removing a name. I'm not sure what is the confusion about that, right? Now I'm saying, if there's any illegality about it, which is the decision of the committee to write back to the speaker, let's get it at that point, when it is now said that you have not handled the matter as expected. It does not help the president to execute his legal and constitutional obligation of appointing the board. And like Senior Counsel said, whether this is starting, whether as the committee we still now have to follow another route, but that will be, as we put it on the table of the speaker, at least in responding to what the speaker said is sent to us through the ATC. And in fact, it says consideration and report. So we'll report to the speaker in that way. So I'm just saying that those who at least speak, because we've not have a divergent view, even from what Honorable Clerko said, it was to re-emphasize the point. Is there a contrary view on the table, so that post the meeting, the chairperson can do what is expected of the chair to act in the best interest of the committee, communicate the decision of the committee, right? And I understand what Honorable Clerko said. I've noted it, that the legal people are not the extension of the committee. The decision still has to be made by the committee, and that's why it's before the committee. However, the reason we have worked with them throughout is that whatever we do, Parliament being a creature of statute, we must ensure that we are taking decisions that are legally sound, not because they can't be challenged. They can be challenged at any given time, but you should satisfy yourself that when that test comes to the fore, you'll be able to defend that decision, and it should pass the test of time. So I don't know what then gets to be the confusion about the matter. So I would now put that as the way forward. And now members, if there's an alternative view, we'll hear at that point. If there are members who say, no, we have a different view, we want to make this proposal to what is put on the table. Otherwise, we'll never finish. I can tell you, we'll forever reopen and reopen. Here is an opportunity for members to make the decision. The subcommittee recommends to this committee, I've clarified it earlier, but what we communicate is what this committee has agreed upon, and I've put it on the table. So if there's an alternative view, let's hear that. On my side, it's going.
Chair?
Honorable Kumbu?
It's not a different view, Chairperson. I just want to say that we have summarized it correctly.
So Honorable Kumbu also agrees. If that's the case, honorable members, because we are all interested in the resolution of the problem, and that we want to see the SABC working, and that we are not complicit to its collapse. We are now going to write to the speaker as summarized. And of course, as I say, if there are legal challenges on that, we'll hear it when it's put on that table and communicated to the relevant appointing authority. With that, this meeting stays adjourned until we convene another committee meeting. Will, as such.
Point of clarity, Chair.
Yes.
Are you not going to request a mover and a seconder for the report?
Honorable Bodlani, I took that summaries agreed upon by members as I asked, so that we adopt that summary as the report. But if you think that you still need to formalize after Honorable Gumbo also said the same, you can come. I just want to be sure there's no confusion then, because that's what is the report.
No confusion, Chair, perfectly clear.
It's very
Perfectly
clear, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, with that having been said, honorable members would now close the meeting. Thanks to the legal, including senior counsel, for coming before the committee, clarify ourselves on the matters raised. We've noted, as we have said, and I'm sure you'd have heard the summary that we're making as now the decision of the committee that we're communicating to the speaker will be advised at that level if there's anything that we could have done differently. I'm sure you heard that, including yourselves from the legal services. I'm sure you'd understand it's difficult to summarize when there are legal divergent views on some matters, but at some point the committee needs to make a call, and that's the call we've made. Thanks for always be there when we ask for support. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Happy Easter, Chair.